Hello and welcome to CLS 2020. My name is Casey Webb and this is an on-demand session titled Introducing Your Teachers to Blended Learning, a Survival Guide. As I said, I'm Casey Webb. I am an Associate Superintendent for the Department of Catholic Education and Faith Formation with the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So today we're going to talk about introducing your teachers to blended learning. If you'd like to access these slides, you can go to bit.ly/blsurvival. So right here on the screen, it's bit.ly/B, lowercase survival. That'll give you access to all the slides, and throughout the slides there are some hyperlinks which will take you some resources that will hopefully be helpful to you on your blended learning journey. So our objective today is really to learn some practical tips for successful blended learning implementation, and within that we'll see examples and resources to help you get your school or your diocese or district started, and also identify what not to do so you can learn from the mistakes that I've made along the way. Before we hop in, I would like to start off with our opening prayer. This is from the Catholic Leadership Institute, and if you like this prayer, you can find it down here at this link on the bottom of the screen. Just take a moment to quiet yourself. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, we pray that you will create among us Catholic leaders, individuals made in your image who will apply your teachings in their lives and positively impact our families, our workplaces, our communities, and our church. Help us to inspire those with whom we come into contact, to share their God-given talents, to do your will, and to find a place in your kingdom where their deepest joys and the world's deepest hungers meet and cry for their special qualities and abilities. Make us leaders, Lord, leaders with strength and courage to follow you, leaders who make your love visible to the world in all of your words and actions. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. That prayer is chock full of great words, and definitely we are praying for strength and courage during this time. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Casey Webb. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. I attended St. Philip Neri for elementary school, Archbishop Chappelle for high school, and then Louisiana State University for undergrad. Shortly after undergrad, I applied to Teach for America. I was accepted, and that took me out to Los Angeles, where I stayed for 5 years. I got my master's from Loyola Marymount University in education, and while out in Los Angeles, I met my husband, who I dragged back to New Orleans with me. So he says that it's in the fine print. When you meet a New Orleans girl, she will bring you home. So I did. And when I came home, I was a blended learning manager for a wonderful organization called Seton Education Partners, and then came over to the Archdiocese of New Orleans to run blended learning programs for them, and then recently stepped into a role as the Associate Superintendent. So I'm now with the Archdiocese of New Orleans and very happy to be doing work for a wonderful organization with wonderful people and work that I'm very passionate about. So, and that's our little family, me, Josh, and Julian. And so that's me in a nutshell. And this is you in a nutshell. Who says that teaching is stressful? I'm 39 and I feel great. So whether you are a teacher, a principal, assistant principal, superintendent, associate superintendent, I know that the past 6 months have been absolutely insane, and your poor brain cannot cope, and you are every day learning about a new challenge or a new struggle, and you're really needing that prayer for God to give us strength and courage and leadership right now. So if you haven't stopped today, just recognize all that you have accomplished in the last 6 months. Our educators around the world are just doing such a phenomenal job. So if you haven't yet, take a minute to recognize all that you've done, and also to, we're all here at the Catholic Leadership Summit together, working to continue improving and pushing ourselves. So hopefully you're going to walk away with some resources from this session and a new contact to reach out to if there's any way that I can help. So I launched the Blended Learning and Leadership Development Program for the Archdiocese of New Orleans 4 years ago, and I'd like to share with you my survival guide, my resources and tips and tricks that have made our program successful. And obviously we're still pushing to expand and scale and get better every day. So over the next few minutes together, we're going to talk about our practical tips, which would be 4 important tips. First is creating buy-in with an opt-in approach, and I'll go into more detail on each of these and share resources. Second is to provide ongoing professional development. I can't stress that enough. Third is to normalize growth and struggle. I know that sounds simple, but that has been incredibly important to our success. And finally, to set clear expectations and goals from the very beginning. So a little background before we talk about those practical tips. This was last year, 2019-2020, sort of at a glance in our program. So we have blended learning programs that I've rolled out and supported in 14 schools now. And before this, we did have schools. Our archdiocese has 72 schools. And so before I joined the team, we did have schools that were implementing blended learning on their own. So we do have programs that are going in more than 14 schools, but these are the 14 that I've helped to roll out. So that's currently affecting a little more than 1,500 students, with 85 leaders and teachers involved in our program, implemented in over 70 classrooms. And our data, the common program that we're using through all of those schools is Lexia Core 5 and Lexia Power Up. So really focusing on grades K through 5, and then also 6th and 7th. For Lexia Power Up. And so through that program, we've had an average of, in 2019-2020, 12.3 months of growth from September to May. And our teachers have received over 65 hours of professional development over the course of the school year. Our program design has 2 tracks. So first is the blended learning track, where we really focus on professional development related to blended learning. We have a cohort model. So those 14 schools, we have teachers from each school that come together over the course of the school year for professional development. And last year it was in person up until the pandemic started. And over the summer, we did all of our professional development via Zoom, with lots of opportunities for breakout sessions and collaboration through using Google tools. We do a gradual implementation. So to become a successful blended learning school, you're not just going to start it in the beginning of the school year and be doing everything you need to be doing by September or October. We really take it gradually so that teachers can master every aspect of the program and then continue to push themselves and continue adding to their blended learning programs in their classrooms, and leaders continue adding to their programs in their schools. We built in observations and sort of made that feel like the norm, and it's okay. Being observed helps us, and they're not just being observed by me, but they're being observed by each other, which has been incredible, because you can be in your classroom at your school all day long, but when you see someone else do it, like light bulbs start going off and little tiny ideas come to fruition, that tiny changes that you can make in your own classroom or your own school that can really make a huge impact. And then we also built in accountability. So I'll talk more about all of those things. On the other side of it, we also have a leadership track, and that's both for our principals and our teachers. And so when you're implementing a new program like blended learning or any new program, we really want our teachers to develop themselves as leaders so they can be successful. So it's personal development. We do some assessments. The 2 that we use are DISC and team dimensions. And we really help the school team, the principal and the teachers that are implementing blended learning at that school, really take a look inward, build in lots of reflection, and how they work together and bring their own unique strengths into that team to make it successful. And so they have core teams where that they're the core blended learning team at their school, and they meet whatever works for their school. Some do it weekly, some are bi-weekly, some are monthly, but that core team meets because you can't do it alone. Well, you can, but it will be less successful and much more challenging. And then I skipped action learning, but action learning is kind of the background of our whole program. And so what that is a leadership development formation process that involves a small team of people, that cohort, small team of people solving a real organizational challenge. In our aspect, the challenge is implementing blended learning, while focusing on what they're learning and how they're learning it to benefit each team member in the organization. So really, in a nutshell, what it is that we're learning how to implement blended learning as we're implementing blended learning. So we come to training, we learn what is blended learning, why are we doing blended learning, why is it important, how do I get started? And then we go back to our schools and we act on it. Right? So we start implementing it. We teach our kids what it is. We teach our students why we're doing it. We get the routines and procedures and the mindsets needed to get started. And then we come back together for more professional development, and we kind of push a little further. Hey, what's going well with your implementation? What's not going well? Let's creatively problem solve together. And now that we've got that piece figured out, okay, let's add another little piece. Let's start looking at the data. Let's start setting some goals. And then we go back to our classrooms and we put those things into action. So you're really learning and then doing and reflecting, and learning and then doing and reflecting. And that has been, action learning has been incredibly important to our program design. A little bit about our results, and this is a screenshot, sorry, this is not a screenshot, but this is data from our Lexia program. So it tells us at the start of the year, based on the placement test, if you're not familiar with Lexia, based on the placement test, we had 58% of our approximately 1,500 students tested below grade level in reading. 40% were on grade level, and we had 2% test above grade level. And then you can see we sort of have these benchmarks throughout the year where we looked at November, January, March, and May, and you can see how our students were growing as they were using the program. This data has been really inspiring to both our teachers and our students, and just pushes us to keep working harder, because we really ideally want all of our students at the end of the year to be in this dark purple or in this light purple on grade level. So let's talk about that first practical tip. Number one, create buy-in with an opt-in approach. So I told you I was gonna, let you learn from my mistakes. Our first year, we didn't create buy-in. We selected one school that we were gonna roll out blended learning in, and we just pushed forward. The principal was very excited about it, and the teachers were honestly, they were clueless. They didn't know that their school had decided to do this. They didn't know what it was, and we just went full speed ahead. And I would say that first year we had some pockets of success, but overall it was not successful because those teachers were forced in and didn't have an opportunity to opt in. And so moving forward, we changed our approach. After that first year of rollout, we then expanded it to additional schools, but it was opt-in. And not even the whole school. Leaders, look at your school, look at your teachers, and who is in your building is ready to try something new, who's ready to innovate, who's ready to look at data, who's not afraid to change a little bit. That's gonna be your innovators and your early adapters, and that's where you're gonna have the most success implementing a new program, whether it's blended learning or a flipped classroom or a new curriculum, whatever it may be. So for some schools, that was their kindergarten, and they were like, yes, we're gonna start with kindergarten and roll up. And for some schools, it wasn't. It was like, no, our kindergarten teachers are not ready for this. We're gonna start in third grade. We're gonna start in second grade. And so they really started with their early adopters and they're innovators, and then they let it build from there. Let other teachers in the building see what's going on in those classrooms. Let other schools in the Archdiocese see what's going on in that school and let it expand that way. Top down doesn't work and is less effective. So creating buy-in, allowing people to opt in. Tools and resources to help. So this first link is to our blended learning info sheet. And I'll just go ahead and click on it really quickly so you can see. This is the info sheet that went out to all 72 of our schools in the Archdiocese, basically saying, hey, we're looking into piloting this in a few schools. What is it? What are the benefits? What's required of schools that participate? And this was the big one. You have to be available for all of these days of professional development. So these are all the requirements. And what do you get as a school or as a teacher for participating? So we're providing access to the hardware and the software if your school doesn't already have it. We're providing the professional development. We're providing tons of resources, ready to use resources so that teachers don't feel like they're reinventing the wheel. So there is our blended learning info sheet for you. And then I just wanted to show you kind of, because we did a buy-in, opt-in model, this is kind of what it's looked like for us to scale. And you might scale faster or slower than this, depending on your human capital and your resources and buy-in, et cetera, in your diocese or in your school. So we started off 2016-17 with one school, and then we added 3 more. So we had 4 total, then we added 10 more. And then this past year, we actually didn't add any additional schools. We did have interest, but we really allowed each school to expand their program. And then 2020, 2021, we are planning to add, or we have added some new schools to our program, and those teachers just went through their training via Zoom over the summer. So that's how scaling has looked like with an opt-in approach. Again, it could look different for you. Now we're going to move on to practical tip number 2, which is providing ongoing professional development. So that professional development, you already know, it's got to be high quality. And the feedback that we've gotten from our teachers and principals about the professional development that we've provided has been phenomenal. They feel supported. They feel like they have the knowledge and the tools and the resources that they need. Would they tell you that it's been easy? No. But would they tell you that they've been prepared? Yes. And that cohort model that we created with our professional development really allowed our teachers from within individual schools and also from different schools to come together and collaborate, to support each other. They feel like they're part of a community, and they're really sharing resources and also helping each other creatively problem solve. So we know that one-time professional development doesn't work. So what happens is, here's your behavior, right? You go to you've been doing what you've been doing all along. You go to your training and you're all excited about it. And you go back to your building and you try it a little bit and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do all these things. And then you get busy. Teaching, education is crazy. And slowly but surely, you kind of fall back into your old habits. And so what happens for results, right? You've been behaving the way you've been behaving all along. So you've been getting the same results all along. You go to this training, you're excited about it. The results haven't changed yet. You come back and you start trying it, and it's hard. So results aren't great, and results are getting a little bit better as you keep trying. But then you go back to your old habits and you go back to your old results as well. So we know that one-time professional development doesn't work, but we're so busy in our schools that sometimes that's the only option that we have. We're implementing a new curriculum that came at the beginning of the year. They did this 4-day, professional development for us, and then they left, and we crossed our fingers. There was a 10-year study, done by, it's in my reference slide. I'm forgetting the Horizon, I believe, where researchers found that teachers needed 80 hours of professional development focused on a defined set of strategies to change their practice. 80 hours of professional development focused on something specific in order for practice to actually change. So that's huge. And I showed you in that last slide that we've provided over 65 hours of professional development for our teachers. And if we add in all of those core team meetings that they've had and the time they spent looking at data, I'm sure it's over 80. But I feel like, again, we've really supported them to make them feel like they have what they need to be successful. So here's our schedule. If this helps at all, this is how we laid out our ongoing professional development throughout the year. So in the summer, we brought teachers together for 3 full days, whether that be in person or virtual. We really framed the year. We focused a lot on mindsets, and we focused on the routines that you need for successful blended learning in your classrooms and schools. And then we also taught them how to use Lexia, an overview of Lexia, which was our common program that we used across all schools. Then we came back together in October for 2 full days of professional development, and we also had our first round of observations where both I observed in classrooms and gave feedback, and then teachers had an opportunity to observe each other. And during that second 2-day session, we really focused on collaboration and creative problem solving, reflecting on what we had already done from the summer to October. And then also what we added in was motivation. So how are we motivating our students? And that was also our first look at the data. So we used the data from the program to motivate students and to set goals and to start tracking those goals. And that was also how we got teachers to start looking at that data. So then we came back together in November for 1 session. And now we've been looking at the data, we've been talking about goals, we've been talking about motivation. And so we started data tracking. Teachers created visuals for their classrooms, and it looked different in every school for how they wanted to present that data. And we really focused on growth and not necessarily on proficiency. Both are important, but when we're displaying it visually and we're really focusing on that growth mindset with our students, our visual data displays were growth-based. And we also had a blended learning rubric that was created by Seton Education Partners that we used to guide our own goal setting as teachers, school leaders, and overall schools. We came back together in January for 2 more days with more observations. So as teachers are changing what they're focusing on, they're going into each other's classrooms within different schools, and they're looking, okay, well, how is she doing it? How is he doing it? What are their students struggling on? How do their students respond when they, don't understand a concept in the program? Or how are they managing small group lessons? So getting to see it in each other's classrooms was important. And then we really focused on high quality small group instruction and using that data to inform small group instruction. And then we came back together in March for really what was our last day of professional development together, and continuing the focus on small group instruction, using our data, and doing a lot of reflection on the year, and then planning for how do we push ourselves through April and May, and how do we vision ourselves in our classrooms really pushing through next year to continue improving that blended learning program. And then last but definitely not least, in May, we came together for sort of, what was a graduation? To celebrate all of the work and accomplishments throughout the year. I gave out professional development certificates for all of the hours that they worked on, and then I gave a small gift just to kind of commemorate the experience. And again, we talked about goals for the future. That seems like the graduation. I wasn't sold on doing it at first, but it really was an important way for us to wrap up and to really celebrate all of the hard work that went into rolling out blended learning that year in their schools. Moving on to tip number 3, normalizing growth and the struggle. I said it before, this seems small, it's huge. Teachers and students both need to realize that change is hard and there will be a struggle. And when you have that growth mindset, you know that your brain change doesn't come easily. And if things are easy, then they're probably not really changing that much. So we talked a lot about growth mindset, both for ourselves and for our students. Here's an example of one of our kindergarten classrooms tracking their growth on Lexia. So each student is a superhero that they colored themselves, and every time they level up, they get to go move their superhero along. And then here is a growth mindset poster that one of our teachers created, and really talking to students about what's your brain saying to you? What's that inner monologue that you have? It's not, this is too hard, I can't do it. What else could you be saying? I'm going to keep trying until I get it. So we really talked to students a lot about that. And we also talked about teacher mindset and normalizing the struggle. So we used a roller coaster as a metaphor for our experience with blended learning. And so the roller coaster of blended learning, right? You're at a theme park. I don't know how many of you like theme parks or roller coasters. As I get older, I'm liking them less and less. But you're at a theme park, you're in line, you see the coaster, you're all excited. This is gonna be so much fun. You got butterflies in your stomach. And then you finally get to the front of the line, it's your turn, you get on the coaster, you're going up the incline, right, where you're about to get to the really fun part, you're putting your hands up, you're like, yes. And then it drops, and you're like, why did I get on this roller coaster? I wanna get off of this ride. Why did I think this was a good idea? Is it almost over? I don't wanna be on this anymore. And then you get to the end of the roller coaster and you're like, all right, I did it. That wasn't that bad. That was actually pretty fun. What ride are we going on next? So blended learning feels a little similar, right? And we talked a lot with our teachers about the creative process. And this was inspired by a tweet from Marcus Romer's viral tweet that was in October of 2013. And this is what we used really to normalize our whole entire year. So it's just like the roller coaster, right? This is how we felt about blended learning. This is awesome. About to go to this training. This is tricky. Wait a minute. How am I going to do this? I'm not sure. This sucks. I didn't sign up for this. I want to go back to the way I used to do everything. I suck. I can't do this. This is too much change. Okay, wait a minute. This might be okay. It's coming together. This is awesome. So it's very similar to the roller coaster. And we talked to teachers about this. This is how it feels implementing a new program, any new program. You might go through this entire roller coaster of feelings within a day, over the course of a month, multiple times throughout the school year, and it's okay. It is okay if you are in the this is tricky, this sucks, I suck phase of the process. But you have to know that we're going to work together, we're going to problem solve together, we're going to collaborate, and we're going to get out of that roller coaster, and we're going to come back the other side and get back to, all right, this might be okay. Okay, wait, actually, this is awesome. So how did this play out in our classrooms? I asked our teachers at the end of the year to describe their blended learning journey, and they could do it however they wanted, in a creative story, in a skit, with a poster, however they wanted. This is as we were reflecting over the course of the year. And I got permission from one of our teachers to share this in our presentation. So this is how they described their process. Once upon a time, there were 4 teachers so excited to implement something new and exciting in their classrooms. Yay, we would be getting 10 laptops in our classrooms. What? Our biggest problem was where to put the laptops. Then we went to training. Wait a minute, this is more work. What are we going to cut out in our day to make this happen? Am I getting paid more to do this stuff? This is awful. This sucks. How in the world are we going to help the kids that are struggling and also challenge the ones who are breezing through this? I just want to do things the way I've always done them. I can't make this fit in my schedule. I don't know what to do with the data. I can't figure out how to help so many kids on so many different levels. So training is helping. I'm not the only one that sucks. Colleen, Jamie, and Danielle suck too. We are one big suck fest. But hold on, we are coming together. We are sharing ideas of what works. Suddenly, we are feeling a little bit better. Hold on, I think this might be okay. All right, we no longer suck. We are awesome. Our kids are awesome. They love blended learning time. I know so much more about my students now and how to help them. I am a better teacher. My students are better learners. We are a better community, and we all lived happily ever after. So I just wanted to share that story because I thought it's pretty powerful, especially I'm knowing so much more about students based on that data, knowing how to help them and feeling like you're a better teacher because of it, and that you've helped your teachers, your students become better learners. That is huge. Okay, so we've talked about number 3, normalizing the struggle. Sounds small, but getting our mindset right is super important. And our last tip is setting clear expectations and goals from the beginning. So we talk about growth mindset and we talk about collaboration and the cohort model and letting teachers buy in, but we still have to have some accountability and we have to have expectations and goals in order for us to be successful. So we created some big program goals. The first was that every teacher was expected to follow their blended learning schedule 3 to 4 days a week. This, if you're not doing it, you won't be successful, right? And you saw it's a roller coaster. How do I make it work? How do I fit it in? But that's the goal. Every teacher's expected to do it 3 to 4 days a week. Many did it 5, but you know, it's a school. We've got special events. We've got field trips. We've got occasional substitutes. So 3 to 4 days was our goal. Every teacher was expected to check their blended learning data at least weekly. Most teachers looked at it way more often than that, but weekly was the minimum expectation. And then in relation to that, when you check that data and you see that you have students that are struggling with certain objectives or standards, it's your responsibility as the teacher to respond to that data within a week. And that looks different for every teacher in every classroom. So I'm not telling you how to respond or when to respond or how to fit that into your schedule. I give lots of ideas and examples and resources, but teachers need to do what works for them and their class, but it has to be within a week. And then finally, 75% or more of students will meet weekly usage targets. So that's specific to the Lexia program, but whatever you're using for blended learning, whether it's teacher created or whether it's a third-party partner, there typically will be some sort of usage goal, weekly target, minutes target, number of lessons per week. And if we're not using those programs with fidelity, then we're not going to see any results from those programs. So our goal was 75% or more of students. And then here's a quick screenshot from our Lexia program. And you can see that we're at that 75% or higher. We were at above 80% for most of the year. Tiny little dip at Christmas, but kids were still using it over the break. And then my screenshot cuts off, but actually once we shut down for the pandemic, it continued at 80 and 90% because teachers were making sure that students met their usage targets when they were at home as well. Related to setting clear expectations and goals, we provided all of our teachers and leaders at the beginning of the year with a participation guide. So that's there for you if you'd like to read through it. It basically lays out, hey, you're joining this cohort, this blended learning and leadership program. Here's some FAQs and here's what you can expect the school year, to look like. And they got this before they ever came to even the first day of training. So it really helped set the tone and it helped them understand, like, this is important. We have specific goals and expectations, and it really helps with accountability. And then another really important thing for our expectations and goals, I gave out 3 implementation guides over the course of the year. And this was to help teachers and leaders hone in on the most important action items after our professional development together. So the beginning of the year, we had 3 full days of professional development. We talked about all kinds of things. What is blended learning? Why are we doing it? What routines do you need? How do you teach growth mindset to your students? What are the expectations of this program? How do you use Lexia? It was a lot to digest in 3 days. So at the end of the 3 days, I gave each teacher and each leader an implementation guide. So I'll open that for you quickly. So we have a leader one for the beginning of the year. It's R1, R2, and R3. So beginning and middle, and then later on in the year. And then a teacher one, R1, R2, R3. And so if I click on this teacher guide here for R1, that's our beginning of the year. This is what they got after our first 3 days of training. So what is the success milestone? What details go along with that? What's the due date? And then there was, a spot for them to check off their status. So it really walked them through the most important parts of our blended learning program, and even like just the little things that they needed to do. At some point, you're going to need to print out your passwords, just so that they knew what needed to get done and when. Before school starts, the first couple weeks of school, and then what's ongoing. And this also broke down the different routines and procedures that they would need to teach to their students that were related to rolling out blended learning. And you'll also see that throughout the implementation guide, there are also hyperlinks. So one of the big things, which looks different during this pandemic, but was teaching students how to move between stations in the classroom, because our blended learning model is the station rotation model. So this takes you to some videos of different classrooms rotating, so you can see some examples. So you'll see that there are hyperlinks throughout the implementation guide if those are helpful to you. Okay, let's get back to our slides. Come on, slides. Here we go. And finally, what not to do. So I kind of already talked as we went through some of the mistakes that I made along the way. And in case you missed them, let's point some of those out. Don't forget about your school leaders. So yes, teachers are the ones that are implementing this in their classrooms, but you saw that I had a separate implementation guide for our school leaders. And I had a few leaders who, they really opted in. They wanted so badly for their teachers to do this, but they were like, oh, but I'm not going to make it to the training. I can't take those days off and leave my school for those 3 days. The program in those schools just wasn't as successful as the ones where the leaders were involved, because the teachers need that support from their school leader. And also, you can have an amazing teacher who goes through this whole program, and she's your first grade teacher and she's a blended learning rock star, but then the next year she gets a job at a different school, and now the leader hasn't been involved and doesn't know what the goals of the program are or how to support teachers in the future. So it really does need to be driven by the school leader or by a designated leader at the school, whether it's the principal, the curriculum coordinator, the assistant principal, but you need a leader at the school to help drive the program. Don't force schools or teachers at first. Right? If we remember back to that chart, we have our innovators and our early adopters. Let them go first and let the rest of the teachers come on board. Eventually, if this is the route that your school is going, those people at the end, they're going to either have to get on board or this may not be the right school for them. But at first, build that buy-in, build that momentum with your teachers that are ready, or with your schools and leaders that are ready. Don't take on too much all at once. When I did that first school 4 years ago, and we implemented blended learning, the whole school at the same time, kindergarten through 7th grade, we also did it in math and reading at the same time with multiple different online third-party programs to help us. We were using Lexia, we were using iReady, we were using Achieve 3000. It was too much. So when we rolled it out to additional schools, we said, we're just going to focus on reading and we're just going to use Lexia. Now, because we did that, I have individual schools and classrooms that are like, this is amazing. How can I roll this out in my math curriculum? This is awesome. How could I bring this to my middle school? So we didn't bring reading and math in together, but because it's going so well and teachers feel supported, they're doing it on their own, where they're pulling it out and doing it with different grade levels and different subject areas. The other thing that I'll say about taking on too much all at once is, if blended learning is going to be a new initiative or something that you're really going to focus on at your school, you can't have 5 different initiatives going on at the same time. So it really makes sure that your school is focusing on improving in one particular area, and don't try to have 18 different goals going on at once. And when you're going to do blended learning, it is going to change the schedule of a teacher's day. And so being okay with that, what can I change? What big rocks in my schedule can I move around? Are there any big rocks that I can take out so that I can add the big rock of blended learning into my schedule? And then don't forget the importance of creativity and unique school, teacher, and classroom needs. So again, back to that first school. I was a little bit too strict with my expectations. I didn't leave a lot of room for the unique needs, preferences, or styles of my teachers. I was like, no, your rotations need to look like this. They need to be absolutely silent. Students need to move from this spot to this spot in 30 seconds or less, because we can't lose time. That takes the fun out of it. So I still have high expectations, right? I'm still, you need to be looking at your data at least once a week. 75% of your students need to meet their usage targets. But I allow my teachers to take it and run with it in their classrooms. So when you go into each blended learning classroom or blended learning school, it looks very different because each teacher is very different. So some teachers, let's go back to the rotation example. Some teachers have their students rotating, like I said, it's silent. They stand up, they move to the next station, the teacher has a timer, the timer goes off, the kids sit down and they get started. And that's what works for that teacher's style. I have other classrooms where the teacher plays, it's kind of adorable, she plays Hi-Ho from Snow White, and the kids, as they're moving to their next station and getting the materials they need, they're singing, Hi-Ho, Hi-Ho, it's off to learn we go. And they have to be seated and starting their next station by the time the song ends. So let your teachers make it their own. That really is what creates that buy-in and makes the program successful. And then don't forget to measure and celebrate success. So one thing that I did not do with my schools is we did not create a common assessment outside of Lexia to measure the success of blended learning. So schools in our archdiocese take different assessments already on their own. Many take ACT Aspire. Many also take LEAP. Many take NWEA MAP. And so because they were all doing these other assessments and there was no common assessment, I didn't want to introduce another assessment for them to take, so I didn't, which outside of the Lexia program does make it difficult for me to measure the academic success or improvements with a standardized test because we're all taking different tests. So make sure that you have a way to measure your success. Now, our data inside of the Lexia program is incredible, and my anecdotal data from teachers is also incredible. But if I could go back in time, I would create a common assessment so that we could have some other concrete data point to go off of. So in the last few moments of our time together, I wanted you to hear from our students and what they're saying. The video is a little long because I had trouble cutting out some of their adorable statements about blended learning. But this is the last thing that we'll do together, and then we'll say goodbye. So what are our students saying about blended learning? I'll turn the volume up as loud as I can, and I'll let you hear from them.
What I like about Lexia is it teaches you different things around the world to different places that you can learn about. What I like about Lexia is it's so fun and it doesn't even feel like you're learning. I'm on level 17. I'm on level 16. And the goal I want to reach is 21. I want to reach 21 too because it sounds so fun and I kind of want to know what place it's going to take me to next.
Good afternoon. This is St. Cletus Catholic School, and we have 3 third graders, and it's their second year using Lexia, and they're going to tell you why they like Lexia.
I like it because it teaches you lessons and it's fun at the same time. I like Lexia because it teaches me new information about stuff. I like Lexia because it gets more challenging at each level. So I like how we're in small groups when I'm doing a group of something that I'm doing, but other people are doing other stuff, not what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about my Lexia Center.
Good. And what about you, Logan?
I like how we could learn while we are playing games.
Learning.
I like about Lexia how it's challenging and they give you really hard stuff to do. It's also fun.
Very good.
I like how Lexia challenges me and I can do my own work. And I like how it helps me in reading and English. I love small groups because you get to challenge yourself by learning something new. And I like doing the small groups because you get to do some stuff on your own and it helps you do reading and English.
Hi, I'm Ms. Raymond from Resurrection of Our Lord School. And in addition to our teachers and me using the data in Lexia, our students are using it as well. So I'd like for them to share a little bit about their learning experience on Lexia. Jamari, can we start with you?
Yes. I'm on level 11 and on Lexia, I want to show about what to do on syllable division. So I was putting them in the wrong places, but then it just started telling me when I went all the way to the bottom, it started telling me how to do it. And also when I had to compare and contrast the story, I wasn't really sure what that meant until it told me what it meant.
Great. How about you, Melody?
Since I'm on level 13 on the spelling rule, I was doubling the consonant. And when I was doubling the consonant, it was telling me to say different words and spell different words. And it was telling me to listen to it in your mind. And I didn't know what they meant. And then they started telling me, then Miss West gave me this paper and she told me to practice on that. Then I passed the circle. Because you get to hear new songs every day and it helps you with spelling words. I like Lexia because it does the practice rounds to help you with the circles. Lexia, you get to see new places on it and do cool activities. I like Lexia because it helps you learn a lot more. Lexia because it helps you learn more stuff in a fun way. I like Lexia and the teacher table. The reason why I like Lexia is because it helps us with stuff that we need. And I made it all the way to Lexia Power. And the reason why I like the teacher table is because Miss Miller can help us with things that we need help on. I like blended learning because in our grammar groups, we get to work as a team to help each other spell the words out and to get our work done faster. I also like Lexia because we get to read more, because I like comprehension a lot, and also I have also made it to Power.
All right, so blended learning, I love the small group aspect. Meeting with the kids one-on-one and in small groups provides the opportunity for me to identify where they're at, what areas they're struggling in. It gives them the opportunity to ask questions they might be uncomfortable with for a whole class, and it just provides more of that family comfortable atmosphere. So that's one thing I love with that. And then obviously with Lexia, the data, the immediate feedback for the kids is awesome, and the kids really enjoy seeing exactly what they're at, but I have so much at my fingertips to be able to meet each kid exactly where they're at and help them grow in each of their own individual areas of need. So.
Hi, I'm Mia James, and what I like about Lexia is that every time you move up a level, you get to explore new cities and countries and learn new words, new animals, new things. Bye!
One thing I like about blended learning rotations is that you get to ask more questions than you do as a class.
One more thing, one of the girls at her desk, so she's not in one of the videos, but at her desk, I overheard her saying to a friend, and I quote, "I love the fun feel of small groups, how you get to learn with friends and feel safe." So that's a good, plug for blended learning, for meeting in small groups, and for Lexia.
So if nothing else, I hope that hearing from our students made you smile, and hopefully implementing blended learning, your students and teachers will be saying the same thing at this time next year. A couple of references throughout the presentation and some links there for you if that's helpful. And finally, this is my email address. So I'm kweb@arch-no.org. I absolutely love working with our teachers in our schools and helping them implement blended learning. I love looking at data, helping them figure out small group instruction. And if there's anything that I can do to support you on your own blended learning journey, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to share additional resources. And I hope that this has been helpful and a fun few minutes that we spent together. Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the rest of CLS. Thank you so much.